My newsmaker on the buck stops here tonight has been described in many different ways. He's been called a mystic, a spiritual guru, a philanthropist. He's been called also a maverick. He's also been called a modern guru for the times we live in. In part, he's been called a modern guru because of the way he's laughing and chuckling right now. He comes with a certain degree of informality, a certain degree of bluntness. He also likes a game of golf, big cars, and even a helicopter. What makes Sadhguru so unusual? We're here to talk to him about what we're calling a matter of faith. This is a time when faith and spirituality and men who are described as God-men often find themselves in the headlines, and not always for the right reasons, so sometimes for the right reasons as well. You can put your question to Sadhguru using the hashtag AskSadhguru. We already have your questions coming in and we'll be putting several of them to Sadhguru. Thank you so much. A pleasure to have you on the program. You always laugh when I call you a maverick. Do you not see yourself as a maverick?
Right now, because people have their idea of a guru is a yogi who fell out of a calendar, you know. So maybe I look like a maverick, but you look to the history of this country, the gurus of the past did everything. They fought battles, many of them, when it was necessary. So this idea that a guru means should have a constipated look on his face and he's always blessing you and nothing else, no. A guru means somebody who can throw light on your life. And if he's not contemporary, what use is he to you?
But have gurus like yourself, and sometimes you said you're more a GPS system than a guru, and you call that a guru positioning system. Have you, in this contemporizing yourself and changing with the times, Sadhguru, helped reform, social reform? You know, in many ways one would think the kind of following you have, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar has, Baba Ramdev have, what we would expect you to be is at the forefront of social change, using that influence for social change, for religious reform. Does that matter to you? You know, we're looking at a time when a BJP member of parliament has been beaten up for wanting Dalits to enter a temple in Uttarakhand.
Very much. It's very much a concern. Anything that's of human concern is concern to me. So the question is, do you want a solution or do you want to revel in the problem? That's a question. So these are problems which have existed. For example, this problem of temple entry.
Yes.
These are problems which have existed for thousands of years.
Yes.
Now if you simply talk against it, all you will do is create a fight in the society and not solve the problem. We have other ways of solving the problem.
Which are what?
Like for example, I'll tell you, initially when I first went to Tamil Nadu, we started rural programs, like inner engineering programs in the villages. So it was in somebody's home, some 150 people came in a local village. Next day I go, only some 65, 70 people are there. I asked what happened. They said, the problem was yesterday, the previous day after the program was over, we served a meal to everybody together. So they said, we can't eat with them, you made us eat with them, so there's no way they can come here.
Because they were Dalits?
Yes. So I said, if that's the thing, I'm not going to teach. I cannot teach in such an atmosphere, and I walked out of that house. He's in a large home. So there was a lot of resistance. Sadhguru walked out of our house, he was our guest and he just left like that and all this. Then I came back to the center and thought about this. This is a 1,000-year-old problem. Both are victims in their mind, if you look at it, because it's stuck in their mind, they think this is how it is.
How is the side that keeps Dalits out the victim?
Victim means…
They're bigoted, discriminatory, prejudicial
Obviously,
people.
there's no question about that. I'm saying your bigotry also is not your individual decision, it's like ingrained in you. You think this is the reality, all right? You think this is the way to do life. So I came back and thought about it. Then I told them, okay, we will start the program, let everybody come, no eating together. So I stopped the program and started playing together. Okay, we started a game. Nowhere in any place is it written in the tradition that you should not play together, okay? They started playing together. Now we made this into a big movement called Gramotsavams. So today, every September we have this event where over 7,000, last time some 7,300 teams participated. Nobody thinks who is Dalit, who is this, everybody participates. And whoever plays the game well becomes a hero in the town. Nobody thinks what caste he is. When I look back and saw, sport is a thing that can level out these things very easily. For example, this happened in America big time. People were prejudiced against the blacks in so many ways. But they had Magic Johnson's poster in their bedroom, they couldn't help it. So we did something similar in the South, where whoever plays well, naturally he becomes the hero, everybody aspires to be like him.
But Sadhguru, the greatness of Magic Johnson did not take away and does not take away from the fact that you still have white policemen shooting unarmed black men in America even today. Similarly, when you say there's no point just opposing for the sake of it, it will create a fight, isn't there something like standing up for a principle? Or, because for example, one of the things you've said is that politicians have to lead the movement for this, and you actually feel that elections are expending their energy in different directions.
Yes, very much. See, what I'm saying is, there are different… if you have to look at it strategically.
Yes.
If you are interested in a solution, you have to look at the problem strategically. There are numbers, there are different regions in the country. What kind of numbers on both sides? Suppose, let us say, there is a society with 50-50 kind of population. Now if you start a fight, you will start bloodshed, you understand? First you have to thin down the numbers, you have to do something with education. Many aspects, multi-pronged approach has to be done if we want a solution. Right now that an incident like this has happened with Tarun Vijay, this is one thing that all the lawmakers can take it up. There are all these 500 and odd constituencies that you have. Every lawmaker goes back to his constituency. Anyway, I believe that Prime Minister is telling them to go back to their constituency for his party people. All parties, irrespective of parties, if everybody goes back to their constituency and at least breaks this mold, at least in one temple in their constituency, it will be a clear statement that this is the law. Whatever is the law of the nation has not sunk into people's minds. They have their own laws.
And you are making the point that there should in fact be fewer elections in this country because maybe that would keep politicians more focused on issues that matter.
I said more concentrated. See,
not so spread up.
Yes. See, right now, because some state government collapsed here and there or whatever, in between, you just see almost… you're in the news business, you're seeing almost all the time you're talking about election. In a democratic country, when you talk about election, you don't always talk sense, okay? You talk popularism. So, once in 5 years, we can afford an election. Not every year, somewhere election going on, every state election has become like a national election. See, right now there's an election somewhere in other states, but it feels like there is election going on everywhere because you won't leave me. If an election is happening in Assam, you will beam it into my house. So I think election is happening right here. All the time these kind of populistic statements are being made. What needs to be actually done cannot be done. I think some law has to be there. There must be a period for election. In that time you allow some margins what people say and do, but otherwise there must be some real-time work time,
So you're saying that in some ways if elections happen once in 5 years, perhaps there's a hope that political movements that are needed, for example, to end Dalit discrimination, there's a greater chance of that happening.
There is greater chance of that.
So reduce the number or the spread out.
The spread should go. It should completely go if you ask me. If you want to, all assembly elections one time, parliamentary elections another time, it must be done. People will protest because there are many political issues, I know, but political issues are always there. People's issues, the nation's issues, the nation moving forward issue is the biggest issue. That's the reason why we've elected people.
I'm going to start taking questions that our viewers are sending in for you, Sadhguru, but I must ask you as a woman, why are you clearly not on the side of women when it comes to temple entry?
I'm 100% on your side.
That is good to know. You may be on my side, but on the side of all women.
All women, 100%.
But yet, when it came to the Shani temple and women wanting to enter, you said the practices are occult.
No.
They're too occult for women. This is about discretion, not discrimination. What did you mean? And why did you say that?
No, I'm telling you. See, Shani is a planet. It's not a god, all right? In planets, there are certain influences. They identified this influence is not ideal. So right now, even according to modern this thing, men are supposed to go to Mars and women should go to Venus, right? You don't exchange that because certain things don't work. This is not discrimination. There is discrimination in many other temples. That must go, all right? I only made a statement about that temple where there is a lot of occult practice. When occult practice is there, women will be harmed by this process.
What does that mean?
See, it's like this. There is biological issues, that's why we are called men and women, all right? If you look at the biology, definitely some differences have to be there. If you look beyond the biology, all those things which don't involve your biology, there should be no discrimination. Where there is involvement of biology, like bathrooms, where there is involvement of biology, there must be discretion, isn't it? Otherwise it'll become crude.
But shouldn't the right to pray be equal for all?
See,
Just like we wanted to be equal for all castes, it has to be equal for men and women in the modern age that we live in.
This is what I'm telling you. You don't pray to a planet. You manipulate a planet for your well-being.
And only men can manipulate planets?
No. There are other planets which women can do. Shani is the only thing we're talking about.
So in this particular Shani Mandir, you believe that this civil rights movement for women to enter is misplaced, you would not support their entry?
I have not seen that particular Shani temple, so I made that very clear. I have not seen that, so I don't wish to comment about that particular movement. But all I said was, if it is a Shani temple of a certain kind, where certain type of practices are done, it's not good for women to be there. There are certain kind of practices where men should not be there. We have a Bhairavi temple where men are not allowed. Because it is not good for them, because it's so feminine, it's not good for them. These are sciences with which you can change your genetic material. Do you understand?
No, I'm looking at you very skeptically.
You can look at me skeptically, but you come and see the reason why. The reason why, though I am not promising you any miracles, I am not promising you a ticket to heaven, I am not blessing you with the… if you don't study, you can pass, without this thing you can do something else, nothing. Why people are around me is because successfully we've done things for them, right?
But when you talk about biological differences between men and women, the feeling that women like myself, as have, let me just ask you the question, is that we are being treated as if we are impure because we are menstruating women. Sabrimala, for example, menstruating women are not allowed. Menstruation is treated as something impure when it is… Why should we be ashamed? Why should we be embarrassed?
Not at all. Today, you and me are sitting here only because our mothers had menstrual cycles.
Exactly.
All right? We are born out of this.
Exactly.
I'm saying this is made out of that.
Exactly.
There is no question of impurity.
Yes.
This body is a consequence of that, all right? So let's remove that. There is such nonsense going on in some people's minds, that's different. All the hill temples in the past banned women from going for one reason, because you need to understand, those were not days where the tiger has to be saved. They were in thousands everywhere. So, women were not allowed to go into hill temples because they would get killed, because carnivorous animals smell out a woman much more easily than a man. So, wherever there are wild animals, they said, that thing is gone. Because one thing is, tiger needs protection, it is not prowling all over the place. Another thing is, the women are not in the same condition as they were 1,000 years ago. They have all the necessary means to protect themselves right now. Those days, the situation was such that they told them, women should not come up this temple. It was not a taboo. It was just that, don't come up this mountain, it's dangerous for you.
But what about a Haji Ali Dargah or a Sabrimala temple? What is the position somebody like you?
That is what, Sabrimala temple is a hill temple for which they put that law at that time. Now it can definitely be relaxed.
It should be?
It should be. It should be. All hill temples, this should go, because today women are equipped with boots and stuff and whatever sanitary stuff, everything needed is there. So that law is no more relevant. That was just a precaution to protect her, but that protection is not needed anymore. She is as equipped as a man to go wherever she wants to go.
So you're only saying in the Shani temples you don't support
wherever there is strong occult practices, one should not go, it's not good. It's not good to go, I'm sorry.
Well, we will have another debate about this, because I would feel in this day and age it should not matter. These things should not matter.
See, whatever the day and age, The fundamentals of our existence has not changed. Don't think it's a privilege to be in the Shani temple. It is dark work, all right? You must be glad you're relieved from that. Most men will not go to Shani temple. Most men will not go. So I don't know how it became so popular.
Like I said, we will have a fuller debate on this because I'm beginning to take questions now, and we are getting a question from Karthik. Karthik's question for Sadhguru is, as Hinduism is not a religion of the book, unlike the Abrahamic faiths, then how does Sadhguru define who is a Hindu and what makes a person a Hindu? And Sadhguru, you know that this has also become a very political discussion in the past, where the RSS chief suggested that everybody was Hindu, civilized, you know, when you look at the civilization, every Indian is Hindu. And a lot of the minority said, why? Why should we get up and call ourselves Hindu?
What I'm going to say is going to go way ahead of whatever RSS might have said. I don't know what he said.
In what way?
I'm saying an earthworm born in this land is a Hindu earthworm. Now this is shocking from me.
Yes, what does it mean?
Let me tell you.
Yes.
Because the word Hindu comes from this, a land that lies between the Himalayas and the Indus Sagara, which is today called as the Indian Ocean.
So you're saying it's geographical?
It is geographical. If you can call an elephant born in Africa as an African elephant, an earthworm born in this land is Hindu. First we must come to this because there is no particular belief that a Hindu can say, this is my belief. You can believe whatever you want and still be a Hindu because it's geographical. It's like being Indian. That's why we say Hindustan. When we said Hindustan, we did not mean a particular religion, we just meant the land. We became reverential about these two geographical features because we understood it was these two features which protected us and nurtured our civilization.
But doesn't it have a different connotation today?
Today,
it may
yes.
have been geographical.
See, how it is politically used is not my thing. All I am saying is, when we utter the word Hindu, we mean what happened in this geographical sphere. This was important because economically, culturally, civilizational-wise, even in terms of science, mathematics, astronomy, we were way ahead of rest of the world at a certain time. At that time, protecting ourselves was the biggest thing. So protecting us was these two features.
So who is a Hindu beyond the geography? Because as this gentleman asks, that there is no book, we're not a codified, Hinduism is not a codified religion.
That is where, this is where the understanding is lacking. Now we were talking about Dalits and other castes.
Yes.
We must understand it's not only about Dalits. There are many caste temples where they won't allow other caste, even if they're upper caste, okay? This is because they've always been identified with those segments. Those are the religious groups. Today you're labeling all of them as castes. No, they're all individual religions with specific gods. Hindu is just a geographical identity. The fundamental…
There is no religion called Hinduism.
There isn't. Tell me, where is it? Where is it?
So is it…
Where is the papacy? Where is the book? Where is a codified belief system? No. Now we are trying to do this because this effort to make Hindu into a religious group started when invasions began to happen, and they refer to us as Hindu, and they try to impose themselves. So these people started resisting, but even today they are not successful. Because it'll not work, because no two people believe the same thing.
So there is no single faith?
There isn't.
There is no single
We are
faith
not
that will be called…
people of faith. This must be understood. This is not a land of believers. This is a land of seekers. Here, it is about seeking your mukti. It is not about going to heaven. It is not about going and sitting in your God's lap. This is about mukti, liberation.
So how does it, something that is so, in a sense even abstract and philosophical, get so politicized when you have, for example, conversions today, Sadhguru? They are a huge political controversy. Then you have the Ghar Wapsi campaigns which says, bring Dalits back into the Hindu fold. But nobody knows what caste are they coming back to. Are they coming back to their own caste? Are they coming back to a higher caste? If there is no one Hindu faith, then what is the conversions controversy and what is the Ghar Wapsi?
See, you need to understand this. Religion has always been used as another mode of conquest, everywhere in the world.
Yes.
All right? The only place, in spite of 1,000 years of invasion, which they could not conquer was this piece of land which we call as the Indian subcontinent, or India for that matter, right now. So right now there is a huge effort to conquer that. So there is resistance towards that. This all gets hyped as two different religions fighting. No, we don't want to be conquered by anybody because we've remained like this for 1,000 years. We managed this. When sword was put, when gun was put, we did not convert. Now money is doing it, so people are resisting it.
But do you not think that the right to convert is part of religious freedom?
It is. But how you do it is the question.
So how do you know it's only for money? You could do it for belief.
Definitely.
Or you could do it if Dalits, that your own religion or what you were born into is cruel to you.
It is very cruel. I'm telling you, the way we have been treating the people that we are referring to as Dalits, I don't want to use that word on any human being,
Yes,
okay?
yes.
Because the way we are treating a certain segment of our own population, if I was treated like that, I would also convert to something.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
But we have to change that. Conversion is not going to solve that problem because even there is segregation, again. See, why I'm telling you is, this is so organic and deep-rooted. The only way to solve this is, these people, the village people, most of the people that we call as Dalits today are landless people, over 95% of them. We must educate them and move them out of rural atmosphere. This is very important.
Would you support
big
the right
numbers.
to convert? Would you support mass conversions?
Why should there be a mass conversion?
Because of the cruelty
No.
of one's
If-
faith or the
if-
freedom to propagate
No,
religion?
I would say if individuals want to convert, it is 100% individual business. But mass conversion means some kind of coercion, some kind of something is
Or a
involved.
political statement, like the Ambedkarites, for example, who
See-
converted to Buddhism.
See, Ambedkar converted to Buddha's way of life. Let's not call it Buddhism because it's again not a belief system, it's a seeking.
So
all
you
right?
have problems with mass conversions, not with individual conversions.
My problem is only this. You are trying to put people against each other, which will be play out in a different way after some time. It
And
will-
you're saying conversions do not solve discrimination.
It doesn't solve discrimination and you will lead to a civil war over a period of time, believe me. If you keep putting people against each other like this for a while, let's say somebody is being ill-treated in this thing. So you convert them en masse. So they will become proactive. It will lead to a fight that you can't solve. Once within the country these fights start, it is not easy, believe me. We must know how to handle a population which is so diverse. We must bring a certain sense of comfort to everybody and everybody must settle down. Individual people want to do whatever they want, it's up to them.
But Sadhguru, the problem is that we have issues, as you've also pointed out, perhaps because our politicians are always in campaign mode. that-
Election mode is a wrong way to be for a nation. It's a wrong way to be because no sense will come of those situations.
I agree with you, but look at the next question that's coming in for you. This question is coming in from Haman, who says, Sadhguru, the renaming of roads in New Delhi has now become a way to alter our history. What is the best way to use our past? You've of course seen the controversy over some people wanting an Akbar road renamed. How can we erase our history? History is dynamic, history is accumulated, history is… and you know, Akbar, one of the things I was reading about him was that he actually put Ram and Sita on a coin. Akbar was seen to be a reformist Mughal emperor. But now to have our politicians talking about renaming Akbar Road, one of the most beautiful roads in this capital.
I don't think you should rename Akbar Road because Akbar has made his contributions no matter what religion he belonged to, okay? But you definitely have to remove Aurangzeb's name, all right? Because of the cruelty that's happened. It is like asking Israel to name one of the streets after Adolf Hitler. That would be cruel.
But are you
Only-
comparing Akbar with Hitler as
No,
China ensued the BJP
not
did?
not
But
Akbar,
Aurangzeb you are.
Not Aurangzeb, I'm saying. Aurangzeb and Taimur Lane, you can't name them after your this thing. Tomorrow your children think they are your heroes.
But you know, when you look at some of the wonders of India, Taj Mahal or even the Red Fort, from where every Prime Minister on every Independence Day actually addresses the nation, these are all legacies of the Mughal Empire.
But you must…
Do we want to erase Mughal history? Do we want to vilify people based on their
See,
religion?
by erasing history, you will allow it to repeat itself. You should not erase it, you must always remember it, no question about it. But still, if you name a road after Taimur Lang,
Yes.
then next generation will think this was a great hero for us. That should not happen. The important thing is, in India what's happened is, this has been our culture unfortunately on one level, that is we don't have a sense of history. We will always in a chalega mode, okay? Somehow tomorrow we'll see, probably because survival has been so difficult for people, they don't have the time to carry all this stuff. But trying to eliminate history is not the answer. We must remember our history. We must acknowledge people who have contributed to us, it doesn't matter from where they came. And the integration of many people is what has made us who we are today. There is no question about that. At the same time, there are certain aberrations which must be corrected. There's no question about it.
But are those aberrations, as some people would now say, only about Muslims who governed India? I mean, it can't be that only the Mughals should be vilified or treated as outsiders.
They even removed…
That sounds like Donald Trump.
No. Even Robert Clive wrote something they changed in the South.
Yes.
Because that particular town saw the worst of that guy.
Yes.
So they changed there. So it's perfectly fine. It's not about Mughals. I'm saying even if they were Hindu kings of the past who did some terrible things, we must remove those names, and history should remind us of something that we're proud of. That is how we must use history for future generations. So the question is not of what was their religion. The question is of, did they do the right thing for the people? What was their great achievement in their life?
Okay. The next question is coming in from Dionysius. He says, different Babas have been giving lectures on peace, yet you still have organizations in India which are choosing weapons to show their love towards the country. I think he's referring to a video that has emerged of a Bajrang Dal self-defense camp where young men are holding air guns, and Muslims are saying, like Asaduddin Owaisi said today, that if Muslims had been showing holding air guns in the air and a similar video had been released, what would we have said?
Anyway, for whoever these people are, if they want to start a war, you can't start it with an air gun. At least they must know that much.
No, I think they can't. Thank God they're practicing only with air guns. I think we have to be grateful for that.
You can't kill a squirrel with an air gun, all right? So I'm saying this is just people who have lost relevance in some way. They want to come back into relevance. And the media cameras are hungry for air guns, unfortunately. Why don't you ignore these guys for some time? If you just ignore, some things will die.
So you're saying videos like this should not be given attention,
yes,
but they may reflect
attention.
A deeper prejudice, right?
See, 10 people can have whatever prejudice they want. You must ignore them. If you don't pay attention, they will die. If you pay attention, they think this is the way. They think this is the way to get national attention. See, right now, this happened somewhere where in South the big thing was going on. Some guy says something. He says he's going to kill everybody who's of another religion. Whole media is on him. That guy can't kill a dog.
Who are you talking about?
Somebody. I'm saying he can't kill a thing. This guy, if he says, you just ignore this nutcase. Every nation has their share of nutcases and we have ours.
But this is a Bajrang Dal self-defense camp. It's and is Asad Owaisi correct in saying that if these were Muslims at a similar self-defense camp, we would have called them terrorists?
This is what if we are interested in the well-being of this nation moving forward, all people of this nation moving forward, we must learn to have some exercise, some wisdom into what we must pay attention to, what we should not. Otherwise, it is all about pulling punches all the time.
Okay, next question I think is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek question for you. It's coming from somebody who calls himself…
Those who hold tongue in the cheek can bite it.
Okay, the question is, Sadhguru, are you also planning to get into the FMCG business or something else for the masses? I thought when I was reading this that he was talking about Baba Ramdev, who has a thriving business empire. How do you see that? How do you see the vast commercial empire that a spiritual leader like Baba Ramdev
Just about anywhere I go, people are asking this question.
Yes.
First of all, Baba Ramdev did not claim he's a spiritual leader as far as I know. He said he will teach yoga to the country, which in some way, in whatever way, he brought yoga to every home through his television. I would not personally teach yoga like that because that's not my way of doing things.
What is your difference with him in how he teaches it?
I believe in personal transmission, but he believes in mass transmission. But one way or the other, he's at least brought the word yoga and some simple practices to millions of families. Now, as an enterprise, it has grown to nearly $1 billion and everybody's talking about it. I'm saying, what is the problem if an enterprise grows? Oh, he's a Baba. I don't know what Baba means, first of all. As far as I can see, he's a citizen of this country, paying taxes, following rules, everything. If he's not following rules, there is a law, please deal with him. If he's following rules, applaud him because we need successful enterprise. Today, in a nation like this, it is not the success of our politics or our military which will make this nation. It is the success of our businesses which will make this nation. We better understand this. If a business succeeds, we must all clap our hands, whoever, it doesn't matter who's behind it.
So you do not see Baba Ramdev as a spiritual guru, you see him as a,
No.
as a yoga
I think that is what he said, that he is a yogi and he wants to teach yoga to people.
And you're saying if he has a thriving business, so be it.
I don't see what's the problem. One thing is, as an enterprise,
Yes.
in a matter of 16, 17 years, the way they have grown, I think is commendable, if you ask me. And at the same time, he's a sannyasi, he doesn't have a rupee in his name. I think it's a tremendous example for Indian business.
But you know, Baba Ramdev made a comment that if the law didn't stop it, then those who refused to say Bharat Mata ki Jai, he said, hum to gala bhi kaat dete.
I said, you
said it's a terrible
no,
comment?
No, you and me may agree or disagree with his yoga or with his politics, but his enterprise we must applaud because it's good for the nation.
So let's leave aside his enterprise and talk about this comment.
About
how if the law did not stop him, तो हम गला भी काटते थे अगर भारत माता की जय बोलने से कोई इनकार करे.
I'm saying whether he said or anybody said, nobody has any business to cut anybody's throat.
Yes,
Okay.
or to threaten that.
Even to say that, it's not necessary, absolutely not necessary.
But you know, these questions are keep on coming. Why is there a sudden spike in the number of FMCG Babas? You're saying the enterprise should not be judged. You can judge the politics, you can…
These are all… I think people who have not done anything successfully in their life are talking like this, because they don't know what it takes to do something, a large-scale successful activity. They don't know what dedication and what involvement it takes. It doesn't just happen.
But this comment or his involvement in politics, do you believe that Babas should be involved in politics? And do you think it hurts the credibility of even, you know, gurus like you, where people say, God man kaun hai or con man kaun hai?
There are con men. I don't know who are God men. There are goddamn men all over the place. And there are men, okay? If you are a con man, there is a law. If you are a goddamn man, you will become irrelevant anyway. If you are a man, you do whatever you think is the right thing within the laws of the nation.
So clearly you do not agree with the kind of language that Baba Ramdev used on Bharat Mata ki Jai. What is your own view on Bharat Mata ki Jai?
See, this is a nation where without creating an emotional momentum, you can't do anything. This is not such an intellectual nation where you can put out an idea and everybody will grasp it. Here, everything has to be an emotional movement. So to form this nation, let's understand, nation is not some God-given thing to you. It is an idea that all of us have agreed upon. So we need the emotion of the people, the pride of the people behind it. Because anything that's valuable to us, anything that nourishes us and nurtures us, we tend to call it a mother. We call a tree a mother, a cow a mother, our land a mother, and the nation as a mother. So somebody says, Bharat Mata ki Jai, and somebody thinks this is religious. I think this is serious misunderstanding. If I say, you know, my mother is wonderful, is it a religious statement? How does it become a religious statement?
But nobody should be forced to say it.
Nobody can be forced, there's no law.
Okay, other questions are coming in. We have Amit asking, Sadhguru, is spirituality today nothing but an extension of capitalism? You're somebody who seemed to be a capitalist guru. How do you respond to that tag?
I am not a capitalist. I was a communist, then I was too disappointed with that, so I withdrew from that. I am not a capitalist or a communist. All I am saying is, when a nation chooses a certain path, we chose capitalism, there is no capitalism anymore, the market economy that we chose not because we thought this is the greatest way. We chose this because the other way that we chose completely failed. Miserably we failed. We kept generations, 2 generations after independence in poverty. I want you to understand, all these people who are continuously talking against success of anything, they need to understand 3/4 of a billion people in last 2 generations, they passed their lives without any opportunity. Now we are sitting on a threshold, we made up our mind at last in 1998 that this is not the way to go, let's change into market economy. Now we change, if little success comes, we want to step back. All I am saying is, once you choose a path, your foot must be on the gas, 100%.
Okay.
Every day you rethink this, how to make anything a success. This is why I'm saying these comments are made by people who have not done anything successfully. If you know how to make something successfully, you understand once you set a direction, you have to push it and push it and push it, otherwise it'll not work.
Last question from Shikha. Sadhguru, I live my life by the learnings of karma, but I'm a non-believer in God. Is there a dichotomy to my belief?
Not at all. When… you must understand, when we told you your life is your karma, what is being said to you is that your life is your making.
Yes.
This is the most dynamic teaching on the planet. Right from ancient times in this country, we told you, your very life is your making. To what extent means the womb that you've chosen to be born unconsciously, if you wish, you can choose it consciously. You can even choose gods, you can even make gods. The technology of God making, we allowed you to do, because this is your making. This is what karma meant. It did not mean any belief. This is one thing all Indians need to understand. This is not a land of belief. This is a land of seekers, seekers after truth. If you're a seeker after truth, you can become a genuine seeker. You can call yourself a genuine seeker only when you have realized that you do not know. If you have assumed anything, you can't be a seeker.
Now, Sadhguru, in the end, you are going to be speaking at the United Nations on International Yoga Day. But every now and then, every few weeks, we see a political debate even around yoga, which perhaps is unnecessary, but you know, you see, like there was a circular suggesting that the chanting of Om might be mandatory, then the government clarified it's not mandatory. But we have this entire politicization of the yoga question. How do you look at that?
See, that's what I said, we are in an election mode all the time. It doesn't matter. The thing is, right now, we are taking a mode, whichever government it is in power. What I see is, I am not a fan of any party as such. All I am saying
You would not enter politics,
Never.
or you would not support political rallies like Baba Ramdev?
No, I will not. But at the
Never,
same time…
never, ever.
Never. But at the same time, once people have elected somebody,
Yes.
I feel next 5 years I must support them fully, whoever they are. Because that is democracy. You elect them today and tomorrow you want to pull them down. This is not democracy. If who I want does not win tomorrow, I want to pull them down. Is it democracy or feudalism? We are going back into this. This is something everybody should understand.
So you're
Once
saying
we elect, next 5 years, don't talk about anything. Last 3 months before election, let's all talk again. Till then, please support if you are interested in the well-being of the nation. When I say well-being of the nation, especially with this nation, tears come to me because I am in the villages on a daily basis seeing
Yes.
people. 500 million people are living in this country who are postponing their dinner tonight. It's cruel. It's super cruel, I'm telling you. Children are not eating what they should eat tomorrow to go to school and sit there in some level of alertness. Pregnant women are not eating what they should eat to
Yes.
deliver a healthy baby.
Yes.
Do you know what it means? When she knows there is a baby in the stomach and she knows she is not giving what she should give to this child to come out as a healthy child, what it means to her. A farmer is not eating what he needs to eat to go and plow without… See, everybody thinks it's only because of economic reasons he's dying. No, he doesn't have the energy to get up and go in the morning, it's better to die.
So you're saying those are the issues
When
we must
these are the
focus on.
issues,
Yes.
every day debating politics endlessly about everything is highly irresponsible. Once we've elected somebody, next 5 years, just pitch for them. Last 3 months, let's debate.
We'll leave it there, Sadhguru. A pleasure as always to have you on the program. Thank you so much.